Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host Austin Davidson.
Hello.
It is season 6, episode 3. We are talking NFL free agency, and we are catching up in that regard and talking about 6 different specialist prospects, whether that's kickers, punters, or long snappers. Simple episode today, not a ton to say about those types of players, but our first year in covering the draft and analyzing prospects, the Steelers actually drafted a long snapper, Colin Holba, with, I believe, their 6th round pick that year. And being that he was a long snapper, we had not anticipated the Steelers would take one, and we didn't know anything about him. So, in the years since, we've done our due diligence trying to look up a little bit of information on these guys. Information a bit difficult to find this year with the pandemic and not as much coverage and less access from the media to these types of players. So we did the best that we could, but we got 6 different guys here. We'll tell you a little bit about. But first, we're going to talk NFL free agency, Austin. And free agency period is interesting. I can't remember how many years ago it changed, but we went from the new league year starting free agency to now the legal tampering period, which allows teams and players to essentially agree on deals beforehand without them becoming official. So it's like free agency starts several days before actual free agency starts. I think it's kind of bizarre, and I kind of like it the way it used to be because, let's be honest, tampering happens long before the legal tampering period begins.
Yeah, I just like having one day where it's like you can immediately go signing instead of having a tampering window. I guess it gives guys time to negotiate, figure out what they're doing, like what other people, like they can tamper a little bit more than maybe what they were, but like you said, they already were months beforehand.
So why don't we start looking at kind of a handful of teams and kind of how things have unfolded for them, because some teams have made a bunch of moves, some haven't made as many. Some teams have thrown a ton of money out and some questionable signings, and other teams have made what you might consider better moves. Where do you want to start this discussion?
Let's start with the New England Patriots, because I feel like they made the most moves. I mean, that's not technically true. The Houston Texans did, but the Patriots made the most, how should I say,
they were the loudest.
Expensive ones.
They were the loudest, yeah. So, if I'm not mistaken, well, they re-signed Cam Newton, I think before the free agency period started. That's a relatively cheap deal. It's a backup quarterback type of signing, and I thought it was a good signing as a potential backup. So now the Patriots can either trade for or can draft their quarterback ahead of the draft right now. So I don't think they're locked in at all to Cam, but they got him back for pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's not a bad move. I mean, I hated it seeing it, but I'm going to give him one more year. I really think Cam Newton has sucked for a very long time now, but this is his year. He has absolutely no complaints. I mean, his wide receiver room still kind of sucks, but I mean, when you have 2 great tight ends to make up for it, I there's no more excuse. I mean, they still did sign some wide receivers that are at least serviceable. They still got N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman. So I will hear nothing from Cam Newton supporters this season if he sucks. I will not hear anything.
You mentioned those 2 tight ends. So they had probably the worst tight end room in the NFL last year, and they made up for that by signing 2 of the top, probably 2 or 3 tight end free agents in both Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith to a 4-year, $50 million deal and a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. So 2 guys that are similar in profile, but definitely upgrade the position. I'm curious to see how the Patriots will run their offense, but I was really surprised to see not 1 but 2 of those tight ends going to the Patriots for big money.
Yeah, I guess they really were just in it for the money and not for the production, because obviously they're going to split with each other. I mean, they can't run 2 tight end sets all the time. I mean, who knows? Maybe they can. But it's going to be very interesting to see who they decide is their starting tight end. Like, who would be the one tight tight end, no one tight end sense. I'm sure it could be interchanged, but regardless, those were my two favorite moves for them, honestly. I really like having... I've always liked offenses that can run the two tight end set effectively because I just like tight ends. It's just how it's been. And I'm a big fan. I know they got a lot of flack for the Jonnu Smith deal. They thought it was overpaying, but I think in the future it's going to look like a really good deal. I mean, you have to pay guys for the future. I feel like you can't rely on this year. And going forward, people put a lot of knocks on Jonnu Smith that I didn't agree with. Like, they said that he's a bad blocker because he's smaller. And, like, he's not even a bad blocker. He's a pretty solid blocker. I really liked both those deals. Those were my two favorite deals that the Patriots pulled because it immediately gave Cam Newton some weapons, and I felt like it made their offense immediately more dangerous.
Couple other good moves and, debatable good moves. I think re-signing Kyle Van Noy to a 2-year deal worth up to $13.2 million was a good move for them. Some familiarity and a guy that I thought played better than what he had earned in Miami last year.
Yeah, I think Kyle Van Noy is a good signing for them as well. They got the familiarity, and they're going to get Dante Hightower back, assuming they don't cut him. There's a chance Hightower gets cut, but their linebacker room is going to look a lot better this year with those two players back in it.
What else here? There's a bunch of different moves here. Oh, so as far as the potential overspending thing, I guess we have to talk about a guy like Matthew Judon, the edge rusher from the Baltimore Ravens. 4 years, $56 million deals with $32 million in new money over the first 2 years. Judon was a productive player in Baltimore, but I had sent you a stat where he had led the NFL in unblocked quarterback pressures, which doesn't bode well for him going forward because you want your rushers to be able to get pressures on their own, and if they're unblocked pressures, that's great, but at the same time, you have to understand that a lot of it has to do with scheme getting them a chance to get to the quarterback and not so much talent alone.
Yeah, people call Bud Dupree overrated. I really, really find Matthew Judon very overrated. I just don't like the player, and it was just that was a contract I didn't like them giving. I really didn't like that. Not my least favorite of the ones they handed out, but definitely up there because I'm not a big fan of the player. Like I feel like his floor is really low too if he doesn't fit the scheme like he did in Baltimore. I'm just not a fan. I think Baltimore was right to let him go and not give him another franchise tag.
Yeah, if Bud Dupree is overrated, then Matthew Judon is Bud Dupree light.
Exactly.
What other moves here? What do you think about the Trent Brown trade? They gave up a 5th-round pick and got back Trent Brown and a 7th-round pick. Do you think that kind of seems like it was just a salary dump?
Yeah, but I think that he should be the starting tackle. They really like the familiarity. They really got a lot of old players back in this free agency period, so I like that for them. I do think that would be good for them going forward. And I honestly would have stuck with Marcus Cannon. Likely, I know he opted out, and I guess that's a more risk for a guy that hasn't played football in a year, but I still liked Marcus Cannon. I liked him a little bit better, and he was younger, so, it wasn't too bad to get Trent Brown, and, you look at what they got for Marcus Cannon, and it's like they made up for the Trent Brown with what we got from Marcus Cannon.
What did you think about... blanking on the guy's name. Where is it on here? Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah, those are the two worst. I said the two that. Imagine paying Nelson Aguilar $11 million a year or up to $13 million a year when Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, and Juju Smith-Schuster all got way less. Granted, even if the Patriots offered Juju, apparently it probably would have been no unless they offered like $11 million. But even then, it's just. I'm not a fan. I really, really hated that deal. And they were too early in the wide receiver market, and I bet they really regret it because the only wide receiver that really did better was Kenny Golladay because he bet on himself, and Golladay is actually a really good player. Not that Will Fuller, Juju, and Curtis Samuel are not, but the Patriots were so early into it for a guy that's not that good. But Jalen Mills, honestly, is even worse. Imagine wanting to pay Jalen Mills over Mike Hilton. Like that is amazing to me. That is I know Mills is probably not slot, or at least predominantly, but that's just Mike Hilton and Jalen Mills being paid the same exact amount of money is criminal.
Yeah, so what do you make of Aguilar? He's a guy that kind of played a lot differently this year than he had the rest of his career previously in Philadelphia. Enjoyed a decent season. He didn't put up eye-popping numbers, but it was better for him than the last couple of years have gone. And he might have gotten overpaid. And then Mills, yeah, this is a guy that's never graded highly according to defensive metrics. And he has 5 career interceptions, and 3 of them came in one season, his best season in 2017 with the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. He also gave up 9 touchdowns in coverage that season. So, I mean, the guy is just hemorrhages yards and touchdowns against. And I know that he's more of a box safety. So, I mean, maybe, but I just don't think he's that good of a player. I mean, he missed 12 tackles last season.
Yeah, he's not very good. I don't know why he was one of the earliest guys that they paid and why he got so much money. Like, I could see him in like the $3 million range. Just $6 million a year, like double that. That's a lot. That's a lot to give up for that man.
Let's stay in division here. You want to go Bills, Dolphins, or Jets? Any interesting signings there you want to talk about?
Go to the Jets because the Jets did us a favor.
Okay, so several interesting re-signings there. They got the franchise tag on Marcus May, which is a good move for them. They signed Marcus Joyner. They also signed Tyler Kroft, which until right now I didn't realize that he was a free agent, so that was kind of interesting. The bigger news is that they signed Carl Lawson to a 3-year, $45 million deal, which I think is pretty good. I think Lawson's a really good player. And Corey Davis signed a 3-year, $37.5 million contract, which was probably maybe a little less than we thought, but a solid signing, I guess, at that price. I know we had thought that he might be getting overpaid, but I think that's a good number for him. And Keelan Cole was also signed, the former Jaguars receiver, a $5.5 million 1-year deal. And I think that was the last straw that ended up leading to the Steelers retaining Juju Smith-Schuster. So I guess if you're happy Smith-Schuster's back, you can thank the Jets for it.
And the Jets did a good job. The Jets, I really wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking of them doing us a favor in terms of Carl Lawson. They kind of did us 2 favors by allowing us to get Juju for really cheap, and then also taking Carl Lawson away from our division because he's really, really good player and underrated. Corey Davis is, that's all right. Like you said, I think that for that contract, I can't really complain. I'm just not a big fan of his. A lot of people talked about Juju not getting 1,000-yard seasons without Antonio Brown, and that's just kind of like Corey Davis has never gotten a 1,000-yard season, and he's underperformed, and he has A.J. Brown on in the slot with him. And I know that A.J. Brown is not the skill player that Antonio Brown was in Pittsburgh, but I wanted more from Corey Davis. They're also a more oriented team, so that could play into it. And he was very nitpicky. He was like 20 yards off a 1,000-yard season for the first time this past year. But I don't know. I think it wasn't the best deal, but it wasn't the worst. They could have paid Nelson Aguilar instead, but they needed wide receivers, so I think that's good. I really, really like the Keelan Cole payment. I think that Keelan Cole is like a really underrated player, and I think that he can be good in that system. And I mean, they got a good set of wide receivers now to choose from. They got Jamison Crowder, they have Cole, they have Davis now, they have Denzel Mims, who I'm obviously a big fan of after looking at him last year. And I think they signed Vincent Smith. That one doesn't really mean much to me, but regardless, the wide receiver room is much improved this year.
I really like the free agency they've had so far anyways. I know they have issues at offensive line, but if they can take care of offensive line in the draft, I think that they've really done themselves some favors with as far as team building goes. Maybe they're not a great team yet, but obviously the question is at quarterback, and I think the Jets are at the very least trying to surround their quarterback, whether it's Darnold or a future draft pick, with as much talent as possible. So I think it's a good organizational philosophy right now.
Yeah, I think that they're rebuilding the smart way rather than they don't feel like the same old Jets anymore. It feels like they're passing the totem and starting to actually come back up. They're starting. They hit their floor last season, and they're going to actually start heading on the rise. Not that they're going to be good next year. They could be. I'm not going to say that they can't be. They're at least on the rise, I think I could say.
Let's move to the Dolphins. There were only a handful of moves I wanted to mention here. I think the big one, though, is Isaiah Wilson, a player drafted in the first round by the Titans last year. They picked him up, the Dolphins did, in a trade, along with the 2022 7th-round pick in exchange for a 2021 7th-round pick. The Dolphins announced that they were going to be releasing him. The trade was announced, I think, 2-3 weeks ago, and Wilson is already being cut, and that's a very bad sign for him. His NFL career could likely be over.
Yeah, that was disappointing. I said that the Steelers probably should have made that trade, but they did right not to do that. I mean, they could still pick up Isaiah Wilson if they really wanted to. I would stay away. I think Wilson he needs something. He doesn't want the help, though. That's the problem. The reason why they called him was he said, "Nah, I don't want help." And then after missed a scheduled meeting that he's supposed to go to and his physical and stuff, so he's just not there yet. He needs some time if he's ever going to mature. And I don't really see the reason to just take a flyer on him. He needs to prove that he's going to mature first.
Couple other moves I thought were notable. Number one, they signed Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year, $5 million deal, which is a huge bargain, in my opinion. Could make up to $7.5 million. Whether he's backing up Tua or another quarterback, I think Brissett is maybe the best backup quarterback in the league. And I really wish that if he was only that cheap, that the Steelers could have been able to fit that under the cap. But obviously that didn't make sense. But Brissett is a great backup, and that would have been a really nice contract to have.
Yeah, I've loved Brissett for a while. That was a sneaky good signing in case there's an injury. He could play really well at times.
And then last but not least, there was a trade for Benadryl McKinney from the Houston Texans in exchange for Shaq Lawson and a couple picks there, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. The Texans kind of did a dump, and then I think that McKinney is better than where Shaq Lawson is right now, and obviously with the compensation, they agreed. But yeah.
Any thoughts on the free agency moves made by the Bills? They re-signed your man Levi Wallace. They extended Matt Milano. They just signed Jacob Hollister, and they also signed guys like Emmanuel Sanders and Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, I think they've done well. I mean, they're going to have a really good receiving core. I mean, it's tough to say. Emmanuel Sanders has been coming down for a while, and he really underperformed with the Saints. But I don't know if that's because Drew Brees was playing with a noodle arm last year that he wasn't as good. It's going to be interesting to see. I think playing with Josh Allen might help his stats a bit, but that's a really good wide receiver room, and I like them having Mitchell Trubisky as a backup. I don't really know why Mitchell Trubisky went there, though. He has, no shot at becoming a starter there unless Josh Allen comes hurt. I would have went somewhere with, there's quarterback controversy. I would have went to the Bears for... Oh, I'm stupid. He came from the Bears. That was just sorry. My mind went to Andy Dalton. I'm like, wow, the Bears are really, really in a bad situation with Andy Dalton, and then those connected. I just would have went somewhere with an older quarterback or where there's, maybe a question, what's a better team? The Washington football team. That makes more sense. Where Ryan Fitzpatrick's there now, Ryan Fitzpatrick might be taking one more lap, and then he's done, and Mitchell Trubisky would have a shot at the thing next year, and obviously you get to start if Fitzpatrick gets hurt or he's just really bad. He gets a chance, which I feel like the Ryan Fitzpatrick effect is playing really good, getting a really decent contract, and playing bad for a stretch, getting benched, and somehow coming back and being amazing. So, football team probably would have been better.
On one hand, Trubisky is only on a 1-year deal, so he'll hit free agency again next year. And Allen does have an injury history, and with the similar play style, maybe he feels it's a better offensive fit if he has to play.
It could be it. Yeah, I mean, maybe he's eyeing next year's free agency. He's trying to see if there's better openings for quarterbacks next year or someone that wants him more. It makes sense.
As far as the moves the Ravens made, I feel like the only notable one is Kevin Zeitler, the former... he was with the Bengals, right? Zeitler?
He started with the Bengals, but he was most recently with the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants. Well, he signed a 3-year, $22 million deal with the Ravens. I think that was a pretty solid signing. That's about the only thing from that team that I thought was interesting. It was pretty quiet for them.
Yeah, they didn't really do much. They kind of just let Matthew Judon go, which was a good choice, and then they did that. And that was even really before free agency started.
We talked a lot about the Bengals signing Mike Hilton already. I still think it's wild they were able to trade Ryan Finley for anything. Besides that, I think things were kind of quiet for them. And for the Browns, they've made several really good signings, including adding a guy like Troy Hill, a 4-year, $24 million deal, and safety John Johnson to a 3-year, $33.75 million deal, with Tack McKinley being added on a $4 million deal. So I think it's been a quiet, maybe under the radar offseason for the Browns compared to the last 2 years, but I think they've made a lot of really good moves, and that's very sad for us to see.
Yeah, just going back to the Bengals for a moment, the one move I did like from the Bengals that was big was the Trey Hendrickson move. They probably should have just paid Carl Lawson, though, to be honest, because it's the same exact deal. Carl Lawson probably just didn't want to be there, though, anymore, being real. But Trey Hendrickson, I felt like, is pretty underrated. He's just the guy that kind of came out strong this year. But I like that. And then for the Browns, the Browns made a lot of pretty solid signings. That John Johnson one, that one sucks. Like, sucks for us. It's good, really good for them. John Johnson's a really, really smart player, a vocal leader, good, just everything you'd really want out of a defensive player. Like he's like, he doesn't have an ego. He's not someone that's like like that. I just don't know how else to put it. So he's just a really good, consistent guy. He's going to be really good in their backfield. When that was like one of their biggest weaknesses. It is surprising, though. It's like they already gave up on Grant Delpit, who literally didn't even get a chance to show himself. He was considered the best safety in last year's class and just got hurt. But that was interesting. Now they got their 2 starting safeties. He's not one of them, but granted, I still like the move. I think that they really needed to improve their secondary, and they did that with the 2 Rams players.
We'll talk about the Steelers later. The Texans have made a litany of moves. There's so many to even think about mentioning, talking about, but just a handful of them that stuck out to you.
The trading for Marcus Cannon, the details were that they traded their 4th, 5th, and 6th for the Patriots' 4th, 5th, and 6th to give up Marcus Cannon. So they traded up in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. I'm sorry. They traded back in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds to get Marcus Cannon, which was interesting. I think that's really good. So now they have. You know what's funny is people are saying Marcus Cannon is going to go back to guard. I don't know if you thought about that at all, but I found that to be interesting because I was about to say they now got their 2 starting tackles, but people think because Marcus Cannon used to play guard, they think he's going to go there and Titus Howard is going to be their starting right tackle, which I personally do not love. I really wish. For them, I think that Marcus Cannon would be better at tackle. I don't know if they're really sold on Titus Howard like that, but still, I think it's good for them that they're improving their offensive line. Too little, too late. Should have done it when you had Deshaun Watson back there and given him a capable line. But other than that, they signed 2 running backs, which I was jealous of Philip Lindsay. Don't know about Mark Ingram. I don't know why Mark Ingram really wants to finish his career there. Their running back room is like great, like 2 years ago, or maybe 3. I don't know if Philip Lindsay was in the league 3 years ago. That might have been his first season. If it was, then 3 years ago.
2018 was his rookie year.
Okay, so yeah, 2 years ago their back room is really good with David Johnson and Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay, but regardless, those are the ones that stuck out to me. Oh, and Christian Kirksey. Christian Kirksey for $4.5 million is a steal.
So I'm looking at Marcus Cannon's snaps by position. He actually has spent almost his entire career at tackle. The only times he played guard at all, I think he was drafted in 2011. I think he's had 1 season where he's had more snaps at guard than tackle. So if he was a guard, it was not for long.
I think in college is what people said.
Oh, and they'd be moving. Well, I mean, I don't know. That was a long time ago.
It was a very long. I didn't know Marcus Cannon was that old. 2011?
Yeah, wild to think that 2011 is like ancient in the NFL now.
That's 10 years ago. I honestly, when I was talking about Trent Williams, not Trent Williams. Who am I thinking of? Am I thinking about Trent Williams?
Trent Brown.
Who's it? Trent Brown. Yeah, there we go. Trent Brown. When I was talking about him, I'm just thinking like, oh yeah, Marcus Cannon's younger. That's probably not even true. Because maybe I'm just all messed up.
Well, let me figure that out for you right now. Now that I'm thinking about it.
I was literally googling Trent. Yeah, Trent Brown's only 27, where probably Marcus Cannon has to be older, right? Marcus Cannon, age. 32, yeah, okay. I really felt like Marcus Cannon hadn't been around for that long. I didn't know that he was older than Trent Brown. I apologize to disregard everything I said about the Trent Brown over Marcus Cannon stuff, or the reverse.
Let's see. They signed Dante Moncrief, which was interesting. Yeah, I find it interesting that they have this logjam of players at running back. And again, they traded for Ryan Finley, so I'm not sure why, but whatever.
Might be their starter next year. Him or Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was another signing they had.
The Indianapolis Colts have had a very quiet offseason. They have 3 bullet points, and one of them was from a trade from several weeks ago. They've re-signed our free agent target Marlon Mack at running back, though, to a 1-year, $2 million contract, and that kind of hurts because I would have loved to have gotten that guy in there in the Steelers' dressing room on the cheap.
Yeah, Marlon Mack, that pissed me off for so many reasons because I wanted Marlon Mack. Then I also am a Jonathan Taylor fantasy football preacher, and that really pisses me off, even though Jordan Wilkins was there anyway. It still would have cut in. But regardless, it pissed me off. And then I just don't like it. I don't like him staying there. Why he did that to himself, I guess clearly that he knows he'll get them snaps, he'll be moved in and out, but I would have Marlon Mack. But regardless, I would hate being a Colts fan. The Colts are saying the reason they don't spend money is because they want to pay their own. Then do it. Pay your own. Why are you holding on to salary cap for no reason when there's a salary cap floor? Do it. Pay these guys early. Pay Darius Leonard. It doesn't... Like, why are you just holding on to salary cap? There's no reason for it. Do something. Pay your guys or participate in free agency. I was telling a friend, like, I would rather be a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars than the Indianapolis Colts. I'd be pissed off every year when come free agency we did nothing. When literally, all they had to do was probably sign Will Fuller and then bring back T.Y. Hilton, and they're a Super Bowl contender. Because this year it feels like there isn't, like, be a clear-cut guy up at the front. I feel like anyone could compete. But the Colts were a really good team last year, and now you think about what they could have added for really cheap, and they just didn't do it because they said, we want to pay our guys. So stupid. I'd be so livid and mad being a Colts fan.
You know, something that's interesting, any money that doesn't get spent on payroll for the salary cap, i.e. if they get to the salary floor but don't spend all the way to the cap, that extra money that's meant for payroll gets pocketed by the owner.
Yeah, I think they're really cheap. I think that's really what it is. I think that's what he hides behind. Because it's like teams pay their guys and participate in free agency. Look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs just paid Tyreek Hill. They just paid Patrick Mahomes. They just paid Chris Jones. All together. You know who they brought in? Joe Thuney. That's a big signing. That's a really good player. They brought him in, and it made them better. Granted, they lost both their tackles, and that's going to suck for now until they hit the draft, but they paid their really good guys, and I'd argue that the Chiefs are better than the Colts. I don't think that's controversial, and the Colts just don't. As a football fan, that frustrates me. It feels like they're not... You know what I'll compare it to? It's very, very off, but it reminds me of what the Pirates are doing in the MLB, where it's like they're just kind of skidding along, doing their best, where they got like maybe $30 million on the payroll, I think. I think I said it on the last podcast. I forget why the MLB came up, but I don't watch the football, but I remember seeing on when he got his new deal that Ben was being paid more per season than the entire Pirates payroll. And that's kind of what it feels like with the Colts. They're just kind of coasting along, doing the bare minimum. It would piss me off.
Let's stay in division with the Jaguars. They've made a bunch of moves, but not a lot tying up a ton of money. Their biggest being Shaquille Griffin, a 3-year, $44.5 million deal. That was unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, it happened so quick. Like, there was just, like, right before that happened, there was reports that the Seahawks are making a strong push. I mean, like, all right, Shaquille Griffin's going back to the Seahawks. And it was like Jacksonville out of nowhere just said, all right, we're going to pay him. I don't like it, personally. I think Shaq Griffin's really overrated. I think that the Seahawks were winners just letting him go. Their defense was bad last year anyway. They should just not bring back anyone, even the better players. But so I think that the Seahawks won here. I think Shaq Griffin is not that good, personally.
One move I wanted to mention with the Tennessee Titans, they released Adoree Jackson and signed Janoris Jenkins. On paper, that's not a good move. However, Jackson's injuries kind of helped me to understand why the Titans made that move.
Yep, that is good for the Steelers right now. I mean, he's not on the list of visits at the moment, but there's recruiting process going on. Zach Banner posted of Mike Tomlin kind of signaling a player to come forward and added Adoree. So here's hoping that if we trade Steven Nelson, that we get Adoree.
The Denver Broncos could have a scary good secondary again next year. It could be 2015 all over again. They signed Ronald Darby, tagged Justin Simmons, and extended him. And today they signed Kyle Fuller to a 1-year, $9.5 million deal. Maybe it's not 2015, but it could be a pretty good modern-day offense.
Yeah, they just need a second starting safety now. It's just up to, because they got rid of Kareem Jackson, but Justin Simmons is so good. And they redid their secondary. And I think Ronald Darby, I don't know how to feel about that. I like it, but I don't. Like, he really came back last year and started playing really well after having a really bad year before that. So, if he could keep it up and be good again, the Broncos secondary is really scary. Really, really scary.
The Chiefs have had 3 of their 5 moves in free agency centered around their offensive line, which is not surprising. After they cut 2 of their starters, they signed guard Joe Thurney to a 5-year deal worth $80 million, which was kind of surprising. They re-signed tackle Mike Remmers, and they also brought Kyle Long out of retirement to a 1-year deal. Those were all interesting.
Yes. Probably good. They probably did as good as they could. I think that Joe Thuney is a big deal. I mean, they really needed tackles, but the draft is perfect for that. I think that they recognize that. I don't know if I said this before. I probably have, but this is my argument as to why you don't draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Draft a tackle, draft a cornerback, draft a wide receiver. You're going to need one eventually, and this is why. If they had a tackle waiting, if they took a tackle at 32, it would have been set. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire changed nothing for them this past season. So that's just something I want to point out. I really, really just want to – it's not even related. I just like being on running backs and drafting them early.
Speaking of running back slander, here's some more for you, Austin. The Las Vegas Raiders signing Kenyon Drake to a 2-year, $11 million deal with a max value of $14.5 million after they had drafted Josh Jacobs in the first round just 2 years ago. And they also signed Theo Riddick, bringing him back. They made a bunch of other moves, but that was the headliner for me. And a Drake and Josh themed Photoshop picture can't change my mind.
Nah, the Drake and Josh, that was the saving grace for me. I was like, what are the Raiders doing? Are they stupid? You know what was even stupider? I don't know who tweeted, but someone said they needed receiving help in the backfield. Like, Kenyon Drake brings receiving options. Man, in the Cardinals' offense caught nothing because of Chase Edmonds. Yeah, before that, with the Dolphins, I think he had 50 catches, but, he's not receiving help. And I know that was, the knock on Jacobs is that he really can't catch, but neither of them produced last year in the receiving game. I guess they think they can get him back to the Dolphins, his production with them, but I didn't like this move. I really hated it. I'm not a big fan of Kenyon Drake anymore. He really had, one good season and with the Dolphins and sucked, and then had one good season with the Cardinals, one good end of a season after he got traded from the Dolphins, and then also kind of sucked. Also, John Gruden's another person that hates fantasy football, so it ruined that ruins more things over there too.
You want to hear something wild? Is that Drake had 955 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns last year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. He got injured, too. He was injured for a game or two, I'm pretty sure.
I
Correct me if I'm wrong.
see John Brown, Richie Incognito, Yannick Ngakoue. That's kind of a big deal. 2 years, $26 million.
Yeah, I'm not a big Yannick fan either. He has got it. He is when I said Josh Johnson doesn't have an ego. That's what I meant. Like, he has an ego and he's not that good. I would have stayed away from that.
Let's move to the Chargers here. Jared Cook keeps signing those cheap and short deals. Or not cheap, but he keeps signing those short deals. And he is the Ryan Fitzpatrick of the tight end position. Corey Linsley signing a massive 5-year, $62.5 million deal. I've read something that he only gave up 2 pressures last season, so he's clearly at the top of his game. And obviously we know they signed Matt Filer, so they're improving the interior of their offense right now, trying to help their young quarterback.
Yeah, good. I think other than the Jared Cook, I think $7 million for the 1 year, I think they did decently. I mean, they did need a tight end, but I feel like unless Hunter Henry just didn't want to be there anymore, I feel like they should have just coughed up the extra $4 million a year. I mean, I scoff at that, but I guess that is a lot. But I don't know. Hunter Henry is a lot better, younger, better player than Jared Cook is. Jared Cook is a 1-year bridge guy, basically. Hunter Henry is a guy you could run with for 5 more years probably, and if not more. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of the Cook signing, but them revitalizing their offensive line is a really good thing. I think they did really well in that regard.
Jared Cook's a very interesting player. He started his career as a blocking tight end only with the Titans, and now he's exclusively a receiver.
He started with the Titans? Why did I thought he started with the Rams? His second contract was with the Rams?
That is right. I actually thought the exact same thing, and I was looking it up because I do now remember him being with the Titans a long time ago.
Well, was he just working behind Delanie Walker? Was Delanie Walker with the 49ers at that point?
This was maybe Algie Crumpler at the time. Algie Crumpler and Craig Stevens were the guys he was competing with, as well as Bo Scaife, if you remember that guy.
Oh, man. I literally... He played 3 years for the Titans. I literally don't remember
4 years.
that.
He played 4 years for them.
Yeah. It felt like his story started with the Rams. I remember the Rams, I remember the Packers, I remember the Raiders, because obviously those are close. I really didn't remember the Titans. Dang.
I remember really hoping in the 2016 offseason, 2015 to 2016, that the Steelers were going to sign him and not Ladarius Green, because I thought Cook would be a better fit. And he only signed for 1 year, $2.75 million. And maybe he wouldn't have fit as well, but he would have played more games, that's for sure.
I think he would have been better. I think that he easily would have been better, Jared Cook. I think the Steelers made a mistake there. I mean, they didn't know Ladarius Green was going to be injured like that, but still. Thinking of tight ends and for the Steelers is kind of off track. I am still hoping for Delanie Walker. He said he wants to return, and I think that he's going to be really cheap. If we lose out on Jesse James, I would be about an old man Delanie Walker. I do not care, because I feel like it's going to be 1 year, $1 million at most.
Can he block?
Oh, Delanie Walker used to be known for his blocking. I don't know if he might not be the same anymore.
I was going to say he's going to be 37 before his next game. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to add to that. I'm not against. See, I've weighed some things in my mind. I am really skeptical. One thing I don't like about this Juju signing is I'm skeptical about the Steelers' ability to run the ball when they have a guy like Ebron and Smith-Schuster, who are interchangeable, in my opinion, based on the way the Steelers used them last season. So we know the Steelers' running game wasn't great, right? Obviously. There's things that a lot of NFL teams do to help their running games that the Steelers can't do. Let's talk number one about the quarterback. The quarterback's not going to take off and run, right? That's a huge advantage for a bunch of other teams. What else is an advantage that helps? The jet sweeps and motions that we saw the Steelers use, they stopped using those. Like we said, they're kind of like cheat codes. What else do they not have? They don't have a good blocking tight end. So when you have a guy like Eric Ebron out there and you don't have a quarterback that's a threat to keep it, you're basically just adding more demerits to your own running game and making it harder for your running game. I would have preferred, at the time, letting Juju walk, taking a receiver in the draft at some point mid to late day 3, getting a guy like Ebron split out wide more, and then using a tight end to block down more to help your running game.
I think that would have probably been best. That is the one. See, Juju is so cheap, so like it's kind of hard to gauge. But Steelers have been so good at drafting wide receivers. It's almost like kind of expect them, if they went into the draft, they'd probably find a good one. Even if it was in the 5th round, they'd find a contributor, if not a really good player. So
okay, I have a new idea now. Cut or trade Eric Ebron.
Yeah, honestly, trading Eric Ebron wouldn't be the worst in the world. I think you really could get something for him because I mean, you look at his statistics. Like he's other than the penalties, like the penalty statistic that sucks. He's not as bad as people really make it out to be. He does have the drops, but it's not anything like we didn't expect. We were told Eric Ebron's going to drop a few balls. It's going to be frustrating, and yes, that's exactly what we got. He dropped a few balls. It was really frustrating, but he still had 500 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Like for a tight end, that's not bad. I feel like you could get a 5th round pick for Eric Ebron, maybe a little bit later, maybe a 6th round pick.
Because I just think that you've got too much of the same thing, and it's not going to help your running game because there are already so many things that it can't do to help you in the first place. You're just setting yourself up for failure. If you cut or trade Ebron, first of all, if I had a choice, I'd do that instead of Nelson, but you won't save as much by cutting or trading Ebron, I think, so I think you'd have to get rid of both. But if you do that, sign Jesse James, sign maybe another lower-level free agent like that, and then attack it early on in the draft, I think you could really help your running game, and in the process, I think you could do yourself a lot of good. But we got a little off topic there, but I'm that's one thing about the Juju re-signing I don't like because I don't think it's going to help the running game.
No, probably not. Not at all. Because there's talks that Ebron would step into Juju's role, what he was doing after Juju left. He already basically had Juju's replacement. And, it doesn't really help with the running game when they're both on the field.
Let's move on to NFC free agency. Dak Prescott, really the only big name here, signing with the Cowboys. I mean, that was a big deal that we thought was coming. I think we had touched on it already, though.
Which one? I'm sorry?
The Dak Prescott signing?
I think so. I think it happened long enough ago that we did touch upon it. Good signing.
For who? Prescott?
Both. I think it was a good idea for both.
What do you think about Dak Prescott right now?
Coming off injury, I don't know, but I liked him before the injury. I thought he was playing really well on a team that just really sucked. He was just trying his best.
I'm higher on him now than I was at this time a year ago, but I still don't think he's good enough for the money he'll be earning.
Yeah, it's close.
New York Giants, they franchise tagged Leonard Williams and then later signed him to an extension. They just signed Kenny Golladay today to a massive deal, 4 years, $72 million. They also signed Kyle Rudolph and John Ross. Kind of all over the place. Kenny Golladay got a massive deal. They also paid John Ross, which is interesting, but I like Kyle Rudolph.
I like the Golladay signing. I think that the Golladay signing is a good future signing where it seems like it's a lot now, but you have to pay for the future. I think signing him on a 1-year deal for the Giants wouldn't have made sense just for him to come compete for a year on a team that's not going to be competitive. I mean, honestly, the NFC East, I guess you could call it the entire division competitive every year because they all suck so bad, never pull away from each other. But it's just compete, like really for a Super Bowl or something. I think in 4 years, the Giants sure could could be good. They could be good in 2 years. It could be good in 3. I think it's good signing for them that they got him for more than 1 year, and they got him for a little while so that they could build and see if Daniel Jones is good enough to get them through there. And there's a better chance this year too if they do think that they can compete. But overall, yeah, they did pretty. I don't like the John Ross signing. That's one I don't like. I just have Darius Slayton. He's literally the same exact player. I mean, John Ross is faster, obviously. Actually, I don't even know if it's that obvious. He's gone through a couple injuries now that might have slowed him down, but I prefer Darius Slayton, but I guess that's kind of biased because I've just always loved Slayton.
Nothing to mention with the Eagles. I mean, there's literally 3 moves, and none of them are of any consequence. Washington football
Anthony Harris? No. I don't like Anthony Harris. PFF loves Anthony Harris.
I mean, it's a 1-year deal. I didn't think it was worth that much talking about, but, I mean, sure, go ahead.
I thought that Harris deal was a pretty good deal for them. I thought because PFF had him as like highest-graded safety, and it's pretty good for them. It's the kind of same thing as the Giants. It's like they're always going to compete in this division because here sucks. Like no one's going to. I couldn't tell you who I have no idea who's going to win the NFC East next year. Jalen Hurts could come and play amazing, and then the Eagles win it. Dak Prescott could come back, and then they're amazing, but they still have no offensive line. Giants could come and surprise people. Daniel Jones could finally break out and have his year. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick is Ryan Fitzpatrick and might put on some magic. And I like what the Redskins did. But oh my God, the football team. I need to get a coin jar. I need to start like a swear jar. You know what I'm saying? Every time I say their old name, I need to put money in the jar.
Well, you did a good job. You caught yourself that time.
Sort of.
Well, I like what the football team has done this year in free agency. Ryan Fitzpatrick, one of probably the best quarterback available besides Dak Prescott, in my opinion. I think getting him for a 1-year, $10 million deal was huge. And they got William Jackson, who fell off a bit after a great second season in the NFL, but 3 years, 40.5. I really like those 2 signings. And they also got an interesting gadget player in Curtis Samuel, now alongside his old college roommate, Terry McLaurin. I think Washington, as of this point, is the best team in the division, the defending champions of the division anyways. And, we'll see if they can continue to improve through the draft. But at this point, they are my favorite in that division.
I think the football team did good. I really think that the signing of William Jackson was really good because I'm really a big fan of William Jackson. I'm also glad they got them out of the division. And not a big fan of Curtis Samuel. Never have been.
Well, he was a running back coming out.
What's up?
You remember he was a running back coming out. He was one of the first players you looked at.
Yeah, he was bizarre. I think I get a lot of bias from players I looked at that I didn't like originally, but still, I don't know. I just still don't like. I don't. I'm not a big fan. He's okay for the money they paid him and how much scrimmage yards he gets in the season. Definitely worth it. I don't know. I would have preferred Will Fuller if I was them. I know he's suspended for 1 game, so that affects them. But I don't know what to call it. Like I want to say that he's not because he was a running back. He's like not a real receiver. Like Will Fuller to me is like a real receiver. He's gonna do what I want. What I would want out of them. And him and Terry McLaurin is scarier to me than Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. I don't know. Might just be personal biases there. But I think it's still good that they got a second option because they don't really have that many weapons over there. So it was good that they got in there. And the deal he got for the scrimmage yards he puts up and his versatility isn't bad.
The Bears' offseason can be summed up in 2 statements. Number 1, Allen Robinson getting the franchise tag. Now it would be up to the Bears to find a quarterback to finally get him the football after dealing with Mitchell Trubisky for several years. And the Bears respond with signing of Andy Dalton for a 1-year, $10 million deal. He was informed by the team that he was going to be the starter, which probably at this point, Andy Dalton is a backup quarterback, and Allen Robinson probably is and should feel pretty upset with that. Although, I will say, seeing the receiver market, he probably made the right decision in accepting the tag, given the way the market has kind of turned out.
I think the Jets would have paid him. I think he would have gotten a $19 million deal or 18.5, just like Kenny Galladay did. Because I think he's different. I think he qualifies the different players because he's disgusting. I mean, he's played with. This is like the first year where I'm not low on Allen Robinson. Every year I was like, I think he's kind of overrated, and then it's just like this year it's just like I'm really, really high on him. I mean, look at who he played with. He played with Blake Bortles, Mr. Trubisky. That's not ideal, Nick Foles. But I think that Allen Robinson is such a good player, and I feel so bad that he's never had a good quarterback because I hope after next year he's let free and gets to choose who he gets to play with. But obviously he's a player that can play with anyone and still put up statistics. So his versatility, I really, in that regard, I think would have gotten him paid. I think teams would have taken him just like teams with like a rookie quarterback, like the Dolphins. Giving Tua that weapon to help him develop would have been amazing. I'm high on Allen Robinson.
Moving on to the NFC North, the Detroit Lions made a few interesting moves. They got Jamal Williams for a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. I think that's pretty decent value. They also signed Romeo Okwara to a 3-year, $39 million deal. And they traded for defensive tackle Michael Brockers with the Rams, which led to a kind of awkward situation here with Jared Goff. And long snapper Don Mulbach re-signed with the Lions for his 18th NFL season. So, good for him.
Yeah, good for them. I really don't have much to say about the Lions. I think it was good that they got Romeo back because I heard that he's a really underrated piece for them. But other than that, I really didn't think much of their free agency. I feel like they're just like kind of at the moment a bad team that's going to go through a rebuild right now.
The Packers had just one move so far, but it's a big one. Aaron Jones signing a 4-year contract worth up to $48 million. That includes a $13 million signing bonus. What do you think about this move? I already know how you feel about it.
Not a fan. A little bit too much. I just don't like it. I think that the only team to sign a running back correctly was the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seahawks paying $7 million for Chris Carson is a good deal. Personally, it's just for the Aaron Jones, it's too long, too much. I don't like running back contracts that are over $10 million. It just does not make sense for most teams because likely by that 4th year he's already gone. I would put money down that Aaron Jones is gone by the time that 4th year starts. Just how it works. Running backs move so quickly.
Only notable move for the Vikings, in my opinion, was Patrick Peterson, coming for 1 year, $10 million.
Yeah, that was a pretty good signing for them. I just still don't feel like that team's going to be a competitive team next year. They're just not very good all around.
Moving to the NFC South, this one bothered me. The Falcons traded a late-round pick for Lee Smith in 2022, and Lee Smith is a great blocking tight end, and the Steelers could have really used a player like him, and instead they can't. Lee Smith, yeah. I would have loved a guy like that.
Yeah, that's a shame. He's a really good blocker, and that's exactly what the Steelers need, but good for the Falcons.
Anything interesting here with the Panthers? They signed Hassan Reddick. That's kind of interesting. Back with his old college coach, Matt Rule. $8 million max value on a 1-year deal.
Matt Rule was his college coach?
I believe so at Temple.
That's what. Yeah, he was at Temple for sure. That's what he was at Temple. Okay,
yeah,
I take your word for it.
Before
Baylor.
Yeah, I'm gonna confirm that for you. Confirm or deny that for you right now.
I believe you because I know nothing about college football. I mean, I knew that Matt Rule was at Baylor last, but other than that, and I knew that Hassan Reddick was at Temple.
He coached Dirty Red Tyler Medikevich at Temple from 2013 to 2016.
Wow, the more you know. The more you know.
The New Orleans Saints somehow made moves despite the cap troubles they were in earlier. They gave Marcus Williams a franchise tag. They signed Jameis Winston to a 1-year, $5.5 million deal and has a max value of $12.5 million. So it looks like it's going to be Tamus for the Saints next year.
Yes, sir. see if they can compete. I think that the Saints are on a good spot. I think the Saints are going to have to go through a rebuild because of what they did with the salary cap and how much talent they lost on their team. But I guess we'll see. It's any given year, I guess.
The defending champion Buccaneers have made a handful of moves. They've re-signed Levante David to a 2-year deal. They re-signed Shaq Barrett to a 4-year, $68 million deal. They tagged Chris Godwin and signed Rob Gronkowski. Where's all this money coming from?
I don't know, man. But good for them. I think that they did it pretty good. They re-signed their own, kept their own. And they're going to try and run it back with the same guys. And that's really all you need. They won the championship last year with those guys. Why not? Why not try to bring it back, keep the squad together, and try for one more?
The 2015 version of this Arizona Cardinals team would be nasty. They brought in A.J. Green to a 1-year deal, J.J. Watt, as we know, to a 2-year deal. They re-signed Robert Alford. They signed Marcus Golden. They traded for Rodney Hudson, and they brought back Kelvin Beachum on a cheap deal. And they also agreed to Matt Prater for their new kicker.
Yeah, they're in solid shape for next year. I think that the Cardinals will actually finally make the playoffs next year with the moves they made. I think they finally push. Really wish they got Dan Arnold back. Dan Arnold is sneaky underrated. And he signed with the Panthers on a 2-year, $6 million deal, and I love that. I meant to go back to that when you talk about the Panthers. I kind of forgot about it. Love that, because, I mean, you look at his stats. He has 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and being paid $3 million. Or Ebron has like 100 more yards and 1 more touchdown. He's being paid double that. I wish that the Cardinals found a way to hold on to him, but honestly, the Cardinals could be in the running for Kyle Pitts, so who knows? Depends on how early Kyle Pitts goes.
The Rams made one signing. They signed Leonard Floyd to a 4-year, $64 million deal. Any thoughts?
No. The Rams should be pretty good this year, though. With Matthew Stafford should be pretty good with the weapons he has there.
The 49ers made a big deal signing Kyle Juszczyk to a 5-year deal and Trent Williams to a 6-year, $138 million deal. They also brought in center Alex Mack, and cornerback Jason Verrett will be staying one more season in the Bay.
Yeah, I love that Jason Verrett signing. That was probably my favorite for them. I mean, the Trent signing is big and really good for them too, but I really like Jason Verrett. They really need to figure out their quarterback situation, though. I really wonder if they're a team that's going to be in the quarterback market coming when it comes to the draft this year. I really just don't think Jimmy G's the guy. I think he's just pedestrian. I feel like he's like probably like a 50% better Mitchell Trubisky, which isn't still not very good.
And lastly, the Seattle Seahawks retained Chris Carson on a 2-year deal, up to just over $14.5 million, and they signed Gerald Everett. The Chris Carson deal seems like a bit too much to me.
See, I really like that. I think Chris Carson is worth that, and then with the 2 years, you're moving on before anything bad can happen. You're not stuck with it with $7 million. I really like that. I think Chris Carson is an underrated back. But,
do you know if that's a front-loaded contract or not?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's front-loaded even more perfect. They could move on from him next year if they didn't like how he played. No, not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Seahawks also have an odd obsession with tight ends. They just really like hoarding somewhat decent ones. Like, I actually like Gerald Everett, but I don't know. Just they really like hoarding. They really didn't need a tight end. Not at all.
No, and thinking about it, Gerald Everett signed for $7 million. I thought it was going to be a bit cheaper, but I've been a Gerald Everett fan too. I think he kind of flies under the radar.
Yeah, he's pretty solid. It's just like, but they drafted 2 tight ends last year, and
they're going to draft 2 more this year.
And they'll probably draft another. They brought in an undrafted free agent. I don't think he made the team though too. So they ended up with 3 tight ends from that draft last year. They had Greg Olsen. Obviously, he retired. See, you know what? I don't know why they didn't pay. I must be way higher on this guy than others. When Jacob Hollister got to start for that team, I thought Hollister was a menace. I thought that he was a really good tight end. He's just kind of like no one else thinks that. Like, he got a really small deal to go to the Buffalo Bills. I loved that. For the Buffalo Bills, I think that was really good. It's a guy I'm higher on than most. I think they should have just paid him. I don't know.
All right, so that was our kind of catching up with free agency news as far as the rest of the NFL goes. Shall we get into our specialists? I know that this won't be much longer, but we figured we'd do our due diligence here.
Sure. You want to start this time? I think I started the past two.
Sure. So we each had one long snapper, one punter, and one kicker. I'm going to start with my long snapper, Thomas Fletcher from Alabama. He's 6'2" senior, weighing in at 231 pounds. He was a long snapper in high school as well. He played in the 2017 U.S. Army All-American Bowl. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 1 long snapper in the nation, and according to ESPN, he was the number 3 long snapper. He played in a grand total of 55 games over his 4-year collegiate career, partially due to the fact that Alabama was making the playoffs every year. As a long snapper, you don't get a chance to make many tackles, but he did make 2 over the course of his career. And last year, he won the Patrick Mannelly Award, which is the nation's award for the best long snapper. So that's something worth noting for him. And of the very little tape I saw, I felt like he was very solid when it came to his snaps. I saw, I think, 1 or 2 of his, I can't remember, it was like 12 snaps of the limited tape I saw that were anything other than perfect. There's not much to say about a long snapper, but he seems to be built relatively well. When you're talking about long snapping, you want A, for them to not make mistakes, so you don't want to hear about them, and B, you don't want them to have injury problems. Remember, the Steelers had longtime long snapper Greg Warren, a 2-time Super Bowl winner with the Steelers, had to have his career cut short due to knee injuries that he suffered over the course of his career. So you want those guys to be able to stay healthy, and I found no issues with health when it came to Thomas Fletcher. So, I mean, Cam Canada's had kind of a shaky. Not shaky, but hasn't been perfect over the course of his NFL career. Do you think it's possible the Steelers maybe move on from him for a guy like this? Maybe. I wouldn't think so this year, but you never know. I mean, we never predicted the Steelers were going to draft Colin Holba, and yet they did anyways. So, when it comes to long snappers, I'll never say never again, Austin, but I still think it's really unlikely given the state of this team right now.
Interesting. I actually have an opposing opinion. I think that if there's a year for us to go for a long snapper, I think this is it. The Steelers, I don't know if you realize, we are paying our long snapper he has the second highest cap hit of any other team's long snapper. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that, but
With Morgan Cox cut, he was at 3rd, but now he's at 2, only behind Raiders, forget his name. I wrote it down because I actually had it in part of my overall view for my long snapper, but the Trent Siege. That's the only one that has a higher cap hit. And the cap hit, obviously, the Steelers, if they cut Canada, take a $250K dead cap hit. So you're not saving all the money that what the cap is, but you're saving almost $1 million if you do cut Cameron Canada, which I think makes him a candidate to be cut. Especially something else to be considered, I think, is that if we're not re-signing Jordan Berry, you're kind of not worried about familiarity anymore. Like, if you want Canada for familiarity with Berry, because that's who he's played with, that would kind of lead to it. But now you don't really need, at least with the punter, you don't really need that familiarity because at the moment it doesn't look like Berry's coming back. Again, I feel like Berry would have been back by now. What would be the hold up for that? Or unless the Steelers are just trying to work out their money, trying to make sure that they get the guys they want first. But regardless, the long snapper I looked at was Ryan Langan from Georgia Southern. He is 6'1" and 225 pounds. He grew up in a small town in Nebraska with a population of just 300 people, so he wasn't able to play normal football, and instead, his high school played 6-man football, which I had never heard of, but as the name implies, has 6 men on the field instead of 11. Just curious, had you heard of it before? I literally never heard of it.
6-man football?
That's what he played in high school.
So it's just 3-on-3.
No, I think it's 6-on-6.
Oh, okay. So
unless I misunderstood. I could have misunderstood. That
would be kind of interesting, but go on about it.
Yeah, no, I had never heard of it, so I just kind of looked it up, and it's just said you played with, it was football with 6 people, but that's where Langan found a love for long snapping. As a senior, he won a speed competition for that got him noticed by Georgia Southern. Thus, he headed there and played for over 500 career snaps through 51 starts during his college career and had 0 miscues. He was roommates and snapper for now Bills kicker Tyler Bass for 3 years. And on a Sports Illustrated interview he did before the Senior Bowl, he said he had been working on his blocking for the NFL level, which I did believe needed work after watching the few snaps I could from him, because he kind of looked weird. It didn't look natural when he was blocking on like the 5 snaps I got to watch. I really didn't get to watch that much. From the Senior Bowl snap, I literally got to watch one snap from the Senior Bowl to see if he improved, and it looked like he was an offensive lineman, like he looked normal. So I think that he did improve. Stat-wise, he's already really solid replacement, so he really doesn't have to work out anything there. The thing that may be holding him back is that he's the smaller of the 2 long snappers in this draft. I mean, there's more than 2, but I mean, these are the 2 we looked at. But it may affect NFL teams' decision on which. If it comes down to Ryan Langan and your guy, it's like they're going to want your guy because he's bigger and fits the NFL mold better, I think. But I believe the edge Langan may have over Fletcher is snap speed, but it's close with the good old eye test. I tried watching saying that one of them was really faster, but like it's pretty close. I do think Langan is faster at snapping than Fletcher, but that could be just BS. It could have just been my eyes playing tricks on me. But the last thing I'll say about Langan is that there's frame to add muscle to get stronger, and then. As I was kind of going to before, it's tough to call who's going to get drafted and who doesn't. Typically, long snappers don't really get drafted. But I think this year we're going to see a record high long snappers because teams are not going to want to pay long snappers because of the salary cap situation. I think that's what I'm calling. And as I was saying before, I think the Steelers are one of the candidates because when you're the top 3 teams in cap hit and it saves you $1 million to sign one and then maybe get as an undrafted free agent, it ends up netting you $400K. 100K in cap space if you're a little bit less, 340, because it's now the veteran minimum is 660 if you're paying a long snapper when it wasn't. But the Steelers might want to do that because I mean they reconstructed Derek Watt's contract for just 880K. So I mean it might be something to consider. The Raiders are another team that like I said I would look out for that they could draft one, but that really any team wants to save a little bit of money somewhere where they're just like not in love with their long snapper, this would be the year to do it. I think we're going to see a record amount of long snappers drafted with 2 or 3, probably in the 7th round. I think that it's interesting. I think that I was surprised last year. My one long snapper I looked at actually got drafted in the 6th round, and he was really good. Like, don't get me wrong, he was probably one of the best long snappers to come out in a while, so he probably deserved that, but I don't think Langan gets drafted. I think he's one of the undrafted free agent ones. But it's tough to tell with these guys. But yeah, that was Langan from Georgia Southern.
Alrighty, thank you, Austin. With that in mind, I'll tell you a little bit about the punter I looked at. His name is Max Duffy, the former Ray Guy Award winner for the University of Kentucky, a 6'1" senior. He was actually born in Australia. Yes, I know it feels like so many punters from the NFL played and grew up in Australia, but Duffy is one of those. He played for Fremantle in the Australian Football League for 2 years and also played basketball and soccer while growing up. I didn't see him listed as a redshirt player, so I'm guessing he was just the backup punter his freshman year and was not redshirted for whatever reason. Maybe he can't when he gets to a certain age. His sophomore year, he started playing more and did a great job right out of the chute, with averaging 44.8 yards per punt and had a season long of 67 yards. Won the Ray Guy Award his junior year as the nation's best punter, was a first-team All-American, first-team All-SEC, led the nation in yards per punt. In Kentucky, led the nation with a 45.1 yard net. Also, 24 of his 49 punts that season were downed inside the opponent's 20-yard line. And last season, he was second-team All-SEC, finished first in the SEC in yards per punt at 45.1 and 12th nationally, and was ranked 22nd nationally in net yards per punt at 41.1, and was a team captain with a career long of 75 yards on his longest punt. And through his 34 games, Duffy became Kentucky's leader in yards per punt at 46 yards and was also named the top specialist at the Senior Bowl this year. All in all, Max Duffy, from what I saw on tape, he is a do-it-all type of punter. He has a precision leg, and he has a powerful leg, too. He placed it effectively, and I thought that he worked really well with his coverage units to keep the opposing teams from improving their field position. There are some concerns with him, though, and the first one is that he's going to be 28 years old when he plays his first game next season. Coming over from Australia has given him a chance to make it in the big leagues, but I wonder if age matters to teams when it comes to looking for a punter or kicker. They're obviously the longest lasting positions in the NFL. I would think it doesn't matter too much, but maybe it does. I don't know. He's also a slower operator that NFL scouts are a little concerned about because it could lead to more blocks. And he doesn't always do a great job with his hang time, which some teams like the Steelers value hang time as opposed to actual leg power. So that's something that might limit the amount of teams that are interested in him. But still, considering the raw talent that he has and the accomplishments he had in college, I'd consider giving him a shot with a mid to late 7th round pick, maybe a UDFA, priority UDFA if you're looking for an upgrade at punter. There are tools there, but again, I don't know if he can put it all together. Kicking and punting is certainly a fickle beast in the NFL, and I think he has a good track record to get it done in the NFL, but obviously we will see. With that in mind, go ahead and talk to me about your next prospect, Austin.
So my punter is James Smith. He's from Cincinnati. He's 6'5" and 233 pounds. He's a punter from the Australian pipeline that went to high school at Gallon College before deciding to join the Cincinnati Bearcats back in 2017. In his first season as a punter, he was a first-team All-American Conference selection after handling kickoff duty 64 times in the year for an average of 42 yards per kickoff and a long of 65, 33 punts fair caught, 21 more dropped within the 20-yard line, and 9 punts go for 50 or more yards with a long of 65. This led to Cincinnati leading the conference in net average punting with 41 yards per punt, and also was one of the 4 teams in the nation to not have a touchback on a punt. Austin. In 2018, he stepped up his game even more, yet again earning team All-AAC accolades while also becoming a finalist for the Ray Guy Award. The Bearcats finished first in the AC and second in the FBS at net punting in 2018 because of Smith averaging 46.6 yards per punt. Second best average in school history, only behind Kevin Huber. And he ranked 4th in the FBS that year. Smith had 25 punts land inside the 20, 16 punts go for 50 yards or more, including a career-high 72-yarder against Temple, and only recorded 1 touchback for his entire career. In 2019, his stats came down a bit, but was still able to earn second-team All-AAC after averaging 42.4 yards per punt with a long of 59 on 72 punts, and even won Special Teams Player of the Week in the AAC once. 37 of those punts were fair caught. 21 fell within the 20-yard line, and 10 went for 50 more yards. And he recorded only his second touchback of his career that season. In 2020, his stats came back up a bit, but he had the lowest amount of punts in his career with only 40 on the year. He averaged 43.8 yards per punt with a long of 60 and finished with an AAC championship after defeating Tulsa in the championship game. He finished his career at Cincinnati with 3 tackles made and 1 fake punt coming in his last college game in the Peach Bowl against Georgia that went for 9 yards on the 4th and 6 from Cincy's own 29-yard line. Just some things to mention other than the stats. Smith has excellent hang time, but at the sacrifice of having a pretty long snap to kick time for NFL standards. If he could just speed up his kicking process, he would be the best punter in the draft in my eyes because the hang time and then the size. It's not often a punter has an NFL size, but standing at 6'5" and 235 pounds, he may actually be able to tackle NFL-sized talent if it comes down to it. I mean, that big dude standing at 6'5". So overall with James Smith, I think he's going to be drafted. A late 7th round flyer on a guy that has NFL size and has really solid hang time. I hope you could speed up his kick and work on getting out quicker so it doesn't get blocked. I think that he would be a solid addition. So would you like to talk about your last prospect, your kicker?
Yeah, so Evan McPherson from Florida actually declared for the draft as a junior. So that's kind of wild to think about. He certainly has the accolades to put behind it. He was an Under Armour All-American team selection Also named the top kicker in the nation, played in the 2018 Under Armour All-America game as a high schooler. He also kicked a 60-yard field goal, which was 1 yard shy of the Alabama state record as a senior, and also had an 84-yard punt in high school, which is kind of wild to think about. His freshman year in college, he was darn near perfect, finishing 17 of 19 on his field goals and kicked all 50 of his PATs through the uprights, was tied for 6th nationally in field goal percentage, first among freshmen, and made the semifinalist award list for the Lou Groza Award, which is the best kicker in college football. His sophomore year, he did the exact same thing as far as kicking goes with his field goals, 17 of 19. Missed one of his 48 PATs that year, so not quite as good, but he was 7 of 8 on field goals 40 yards or longer, which was impressive, and he had a 50-yard field goal, which was the longest of his career at that point. And last year, finishing 17 to 22, not the best percentage, but again, perfect on PATs, and was a semifinalist for the Groza Award once again. Over 37 games, he connected on 51 of his 60 field goals, 149 of his 150 PATs, which is good enough for 200 of 210 total kicks. And he also kicked 43 of his 81 total kickoffs in the end zone or out of the end zone for touchbacks. So, obviously, what I could tell right away is that he's got a big leg, McPherson does. He just finished his college career going into the NFL 5 for 8 from 50-plus yards out, and that's just not something you see every day. A lot of his kicks, even his deeper kicks that I saw, went straight to the back of the net, and that's a very attractive thing for a kicker. I also felt that his accuracy was pretty good. He did miss a few kicks from what I saw, and he's not Justin Tucker level accurate, but that could come in time, and even if he doesn't, he'll still be an effective weapon at the kicker position. He'll give you an opportunity to get points from pretty much any part of the plus side of the field. Not to mention the fact that he only missed 10 kicks through 3 seasons, and I think that that's a pretty good number anyways. And kickers are funny, they could flame out, but on top of all the good with his kicking, he also had a lot of touchbacks that he caused as well. So I think a guy like McPherson could be one of the higher drafted specialists that we see in a long time. I think that we could see him sometime in the 4th round, maybe even the 3rd round. I think we could see him in the 5th round, maybe even the early 4th round, depending on how teams value kickers right now. It's a strange year. We could see guys going earlier or later than we ever thought. So I would tend to think that McPherson is a good candidate for this possibility. His leg, the leg strength in general is just unreal. And I think that that's going to be attractive for a team. If he can put it all together and be even more accurate, he's going to be one of the best kickers in the league. And again, it's not like he missed a ton of kicks in college. He just missed a handful last year. Only 10 out of 210 is a pretty darn good percentage. You know, that's higher than what the average NFL kicker is coming out with these days. So good for him. And we'll see, but I think he's an early day 3 pick based on the way things seem to be unfolding right now. So can you wrap things up with our prospects today on the young kicker from Miami?
Yeah, I got Jose Borregales from AU. He is 5'10", 207 pounds, and coming out of high school, Borregales only got one offer, that being from Florida International, despite being a first-team All-State pick in Florida and being part of winning 4 straight titles in high school. Regardless, he went to FIU for his first season, making 15 of 18 field goals with a long of 4-4, making all 40 of his extra points. In 2018, he was a finalist for the top kicker in the nation for making 14 of 18 kicks with a long of 53 and also making 53 of his 54 PATs. In 2019, he made 21 of 29 kicks with a long of 53, converted 37 to 39 extra points while also handling kickoff duties and getting 33 touchbacks on 56 kickoffs. In 2020, the Miami native transferred to the U was able to turn in a fantastic season, winning the Lou Groza Award for Best Kicker in the Nation for completing all 37 PATs, 20 and 22 field goals, with one being blocked, so one wasn't exactly his fault. Then having a long of 57 yards, forcing 51 touchbacks on 72 kickoffs, ranking 5th in the FBS in field goals made per game with 1.82, and also tied for 9th in field goal conversion rate at 90.9%. The reality is Jose has a very, very strong leg for a college kicker. a 57-yard field goal isn't easy at the NFL level, and he did it with maybe 1 or 2 yards to spare, meaning I think he could possibly kick from 59. He made 6 of 8 field goals from beyond 50, so he definitely has the leg strength. Where the concern lies is going to be the consistency. He really struggled in the 2018 and 2019 season with field goal percentages, with both of them being less than 76% in both, because he kind of struggled from the intermediate range in both seasons, where in 2019 he was 6-11 on kicks between 30 and 39 yards. He has to hit those kind of chip shot kind of kicks. Luckily, that didn't continue into 2020, but 2020 was his first really, really good year, so who knows if it will continue. Regardless, the leg strength helps with kickoffs as well. All he has to work on is more hang time on kickoffs. He'll be pretty solid going forward. So there's no chance Borregales leaves drafted. Robert Aguayo got drafted because he showed the ability to kick far, and he got drafted high. Now, Borregales isn't as good as Aguayo was in college, but with leg power and his shown ability to hit 50-yard field goals, including a 57-yarder, a team is going to take him. He could even go as high as the 6th round, but I believe he'll be a 7th rounder as well, like my other prospect, my punter. I think that about wraps it up, right?
Yeah, I think that about does it. So, overall thoughts on specialists when we're talking about them?
No. I mean, specialists don't really have much to say about them.
I feel like there was less to say this year than maybe any other year, too. It was just hard. There's still not a lot out there. There's more than there was a month ago, but there's still not a ton out there.
No, it's tough sledding. It has been tough sledding.
If it wasn't for one YouTube account, we'd have practically nothing. Just articles and profiles on the school websites.
Yeah, we really only got to watch like a few snaps of each.
I really wish they had all 22 for college available somewhere.
That'd be so nice.
Definitely not helping us in this case, but in any case, I digress. You did the random selections for our next 3 tiers. Would you mind going over what the next 3 positions we'll be looking at will be?
Sure. So the first one was cornerback. Oh, did we discuss that?
We did.
Okay, we didn't. We didn't, because you texted me this morning about that. Okay, so we moved cornerback up a tier, and we moved offensive tackle down a tier. So cornerback got into the next tier where it was random. So that's why cornerback is next. And funny enough, I moved OT down, and then OT won for the next one. So it's cornerback, then OT, and then between interior defensive line, wide receiver, and safety won out. So our next 3 episodes will be cornerback, offensive tackle, and then safety.
So we're getting the entire defensive backfield out of the way here pretty soon, and we'll get started with offensive line. Early thoughts on those 3 positions?
I heard OT is deep, so I'm very excited to look at that one.
Yeah, tackle position is apparently very deep. So I'm curious to see Tevin Jenkins, because he's a guy I had in my first mock.
No, that makes sense. And, I mean, cornerback just got more necessary, so to speak, so it'll be an interesting one to look at first. I have heard almost nothing about the cornerbacks this draft.
I'm going to do my best to try to find an outside and a slot option for cornerback.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I'm going to look at a high-ranked one, too. Just have it like Surtain or AC Horn or Caleb Fairley. I said I know nothing about the cornerbacks. I know the top 3.
I think that's the thing, though. I think we should try to do tiers, just like with the actual positions. Try to find a mid, low, and high-level player. So, but anyways, we'll figure that out later. In the meantime, thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show or just want to visit our website, check out strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com or email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. We're on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find our episodes posted on SoundCloud and YouTube under the name Stronger Than Steel Podcast. Austin, thank you for joining me today. We'll be back talking cornerbacks in our next podcast episode sometime next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening, and have a terrific day. Enjoy yourselves. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.